I stared at my phone screen, my thumb hovering over the send button. The photo stared back at me, wearing nothing but his crisp white dress shirt, the one he'd left draped over my chair 3 nights ago after our first encounter. The fabric still smelled like him, expensive cologne mixed with danger and something darker I couldn't name. This was insane. Completely, utterly insane. But Dante Moretti had a way of making me do insane things. Our meeting hadn't been romantic. It had been terrifying. I'd witnessed something I shouldn't have in that parking garage. 3 men in suits, a briefcase exchange, and Dante standing in the center of it all like a king surveying his kingdom. When his eyes locked onto mine from across that concrete expanse, I'd frozen like a deer in headlights. I should have run. Any sane person would have run. Instead, I'd stood there as he walked toward me, each step measured and deliberate, his polished shoes clicking against the concrete. When he reached me, he didn't threaten. He didn't yell. He simply tilted his head, studied me with those impossibly dark eyes, and said, "You saw nothing." But here's the thing about Dante Moretti. He wasn't what I expected. After that night, he showed up at my apartment, not to silence me, not to threaten me, but to make sure I was okay, that I wasn't scared, that I understood he'd never let anyone hurt me for what I'd seen. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe. This tale is just getting started. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. 3 encounters later, and I was taking provocative photos in his shirt. The man had somehow crawled under my skin, made me feel things I'd sworn off after my last disaster of a relationship. Dante was dangerous, yes. He was the head of the most powerful crime family in the city, but he was also protective, surprisingly gentle, and looked at me like I was something precious, rather than disposable. My finger pressed send before my brain could talk me out of it. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. He was typing. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might break through. Then his message came through. "I'll take it from you." And more. 6 words. 6 words that set my entire body on fire. My phone buzzed again. "Don't move. I'm coming over." I looked down at myself. His shirt barely covering my thighs, my hair a mess, no makeup. This was happening. This was really happening. Whatever this dangerous, intoxicating thing between us was, it was about to become very real. I barely had time to panic before I heard his key in my lock. Yes, he had a key. I'd given it to him after the second night he'd shown up at 3 in the morning, just to check on me after a rival family had made moves in my neighborhood. He'd sat on my couch until dawn, gun resting on his lap, making sure I was safe. The door opened, and there he was. Dante Moretti stood in my doorway wearing a black suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His dark hair perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. But it was his eyes that got me. Those eyes that could freeze men with fear were looking at me with something that resembled hunger mixed with reverence. "Do you have any idea what you do to me?" His voice was low, rough, as he closed the door behind him and locked it with deliberate precision. I swallowed hard. I'm starting to get an idea. He moved toward me with that predatory grace he had, the one that reminded everyone who saw him exactly what he was, the apex predator who'd clawed his way to the top of a brutal world and stayed there through sheer will and ruthlessness. But when his hands touched my face, they were gentle. When his lips met mine, they were tender before they turned demanding. And when he pressed me against the wall, his body hard against mine, I felt safe, despite the danger radiating from every inch of him. "This shirt looks better on you than it ever did on me," he murmured against my mouth, his fingers trailing down the collar, tracing the edge where fabric met skin. "You left it here," I breathed. "I thought maybe you wanted me to have it." His laugh was dark and rich. "Bella, I want you to have everything. My shirt, my protection, my heart." He pulled back just enough to look into my eyes. "Even though giving you any of those things puts a target on your back." There it was, the reality we'd been dancing around. Being with Dante meant entering his world, a world where enemies lurked in shadows, and loyalty was bought with blood. His rivals had already started noticing me, already started asking questions about the woman who'd caught the attention of the city's most feared crime boss. "I'm not afraid," I said, meaning it. His thumb traced my lower lip. "You should be, but God help me. I'm too selfish to walk away from you." What Dante didn't know, what I hadn't told him yet, was that I'd started receiving threats. Anonymous notes slipped under my door, Photos of me at work with red X's drawn over my face. Someone wanted me gone, wanted to hurt Dante by hurting me. I should have told him right then. Should have shown him the stack of threatening letters hidden in my desk drawer. But I was afraid, not of the threats themselves, but of what Dante would do when he found out. The violence he'd unleash, the blood that would spill. Because beneath the protective, surprisingly tender man holding me, there was still a monster, and I was beginning to realize I might be falling in love with both. Dante insisted on taking me to his restaurant that night, not one of the public establishments he owned, but his private place, the one where he conducted business and no outsider ever saw the inside of, unless they were family, or about to become a problem that needed solving. "You're sure about this?" I asked, as his driver pulled up to an unmarked building in Little Italy. He squeezed my hand. "I want you to see my world, Bella. All of it." The inside was stunning. Old-world elegance mixed with modern luxury. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, and the scent of garlic, tomatoes, and fresh bread filled the air. But it was the people that made me nervous. Men in expensive suits sat at corner tables, their eyes tracking our movement. Women dripping in diamonds whispered behind jeweled hands. Everyone stopped talking when Dante walked in with me on his arm. "Ignore them," he murmured, his hand warm on my lower back as he guided me to a private booth in the back. "They're curious, that's all. Curious if I'll survive being with you." The words came out sharper than intended. His jaw tightened. "Curious why I'm breaking my own rules for you." Before I could ask what rules, an older man approached our table. Thick Italian accent, kind eyes, and in warmth that seemed genuine despite the dangerous aura surrounding him. "Dante, my boy," he said, pulling Dante into a brief embrace. "And this must be the woman who's got you smiling for the first time in years. Isabella, this is Marco Romano. He's been like a father to me since my own died." Marco took my hand gently. "Beautiful and brave. You'd have to be brave to sit here with this one." He winked, but there was something protective in his gaze when he looked at Dante. "You taking care of her?" "With my life," Dante said simply. Marco nodded approvingly before heading back to the kitchen, but not before whispering something in Italian to Dante that made his expression darken. "What did he say?" I asked once we were alone. "That Antonio Ferrara was here earlier, asking questions about you." My blood ran cold. Antonio Ferrara. I knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. He ran the rival family, the one constantly trying to take over Dante's territory. What kind of questions? Dante's hand covered mine on the table, his grip firm but not painful. "It doesn't matter. He won't touch you. I'll make sure of it." "Dante." "No." His eyes were hard now. The tender man from my apartment replaced by the Mafia boss everyone feared. "This is not up for discussion. You're under my protection, which means you're untouchable." But I could see the worry in his eyes, the calculation happening behind them. He was already planning, already strategizing how to keep me safe from enemies who'd love nothing more than to use me against him. The waiter brought our food, pasta that looked like art on a plate, wine that probably cost more than my car. Dante tried to keep the conversation light, asking about my work at the bookstore, my family back in Ohio, my dreams for the future. He listened like every word mattered, like I was the only person in the world. "Why me?" I finally asked, setting down my fork. "You could have anyone. Someone from your world. Someone who understands the life. Someone who wouldn't be a liability." His expression softened. "Because you looked at me like I was human. That night in the parking garage, you were terrified, but not of me specifically. You were scared of the situation. And later, when you figured out who I was, you still let me into your life. You saw the man, not just the monster." "Are you a monster?" He considered this carefully. "I've done monstrous things, Bella. I've hurt people. I've killed people. My hands are stained with blood that will never wash clean." He reached across the table, taking my hand again. "But with you, I want to be better. You make me remember there's more to life than power and territory and revenge." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that love could change a man like Dante Moretti. But the reality of his world was pressing in around us, evidenced by the men at nearby tables who kept glancing our way, by the way Dante's hand never strayed far from the gun I knew he carried at his hip. "There's something I need to tell you," I started, thinking of those threatening letters. But before I could continue, gunfire erupted outside. Dante moved with lightning speed, pushing me down beneath the table, his body covering mine as bullets shattered the restaurant's front windows. Screams filled the air. Glass rained down. And through it all, Dante's voice stayed calm in my ear. "Stay down. Don't move." His men returned fire, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. I could smell gunpowder and fear. Someone was screaming. Someone else was shouting orders in Italian. Then, as quickly as it started, it stopped. Dante pulled back, checking me for injuries with hands that trembled slightly. The only sign he was shaken. "Are you hurt? Did anything hit you?" "I'm fine," I managed, though my whole body was shaking. What the hell was that? His expression was murderous. A message from Ferrara. He helped me up, keeping me behind him as his men secured the perimeter. Marco appeared, blood on his sleeve but otherwise unharmed, fury in his eyes. "2 wounded, none dead, thank God," Marco reported. They drove off before we could get a clear shot. Dante's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. "Get everyone to safe houses. Double the guards. And find Ferrara. I want him in front of me by morning." "Dante?" Marco started. "By morning, Marco." His voice left no room for argument. Marco nodded and disappeared to give orders while Dante turned back to me. The raw emotion in his face took my breath away. Rage, fear, guilt, all warring for dominance. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm so fucking sorry. I never should have brought you here. Never should have made you a target. This isn't your fault." "Yes, it is." He cupped my face in his hands. "Everything that happens to you because of me is my fault. And I swear to you, Isabella, on my father's grave, I will end the man who did this." The coldness in his voice should have scared me. The promise of violence should have sent me running. But all I felt was a strange sense of safety, knowing this dangerous man would burn the world down to keep me protected. "Take me home," I whispered. "Please. Just take me home." He nodded, wrapping his suit jacket around my shoulders before leading me through the chaos and into his waiting car. As we drove away, I looked back at the restaurant, his restaurant, now riddled with bullet holes and shattered glass. This was his world. This was what loving Dante Moretti meant, and I still couldn't bring myself to walk away. Dante didn't leave my apartment that night. He couldn't. His men had scattered to safe houses. His lieutenants were hunting for Ferrara, and the weight of what happened at the restaurant hung heavy between us. I watched him pace my small living room like a caged panther, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian punctuated by curses I didn't need to understand. When he finally ended the call, the exhaustion on his face made him look older than his 32 years. "Come here," I said from the couch. He hesitated, as if he didn't deserve comfort, then crossed to me and sank down, his head finding my lap. I ran my fingers through his hair, and he closed his eyes with something that sounded like relief. "Tell me about your father," I said softly. His eyes opened, surprise flickering across his features. "Why?" "Because I want to know you, the real you, not just the mafia boss everyone fears." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then slowly he began to speak. "My father was a good man in a bad business. He tried to run things differently. Less violence, more strategy. He believed in honor, in keeping civilians out of our wars." His jaw tightened. "It got him killed. Ferrara's father ordered the hit when I was 22, made it look like a rival gang from Chicago. I'm sorry. I became someone else after that, someone my father wouldn't recognize. I took over the family and I was ruthless, brutal. I eliminated every threat, crushed every rival, until our family was the strongest in the city." His hand found mine. "I forgot there was any other way to live until you." "Dante, let me finish." He sat up, turning to face me. "You asked me once why you... The truth is, when I saw you in that parking garage, frozen but not running, something in me recognized something in you. You were brave when you should have been terrified. And later, when you let me into your life, you treated me like I was worth saving, like I wasn't already too far gone." I touched his face. "You're not too far gone. You don't know what I've done. Then tell me." So he did. He told me everything. The territories he controlled. The businesses both legitimate and otherwise. The violence he'd ordered. The men he'd killed with his own hands. He laid his soul bare, giving me every dark truth, every blood-stained secret, waiting for me to recoil. But I didn't, because I'd already decided that Dante Moretti, for all his sins, was a man worth fighting for. "Now you," he said when he finished. "Tell me what you've been hiding." My heart skipped. "What makes you think?" "Bella, I've been in this life long enough to know when someone's keeping secrets. You've been scared, and it's not just because of me. What's going on?" So I told him about the letters, about the threats, the photos, the increasingly violent promises of what would happen to me. I watched his expression shift from concern to pure rage as I pulled the stack from my desk drawer and handed them to him. He read each one, his hands shaking with barely controlled fury. "How long?" "2 weeks. Since the second time you came to my apartment. 2 weeks. His voice was deadly quiet. "You've been getting death threats for 2 weeks and you didn't tell me. I was scared of what you'd do. What I'd do." He stood, running his hands through his hair. "Isabella, these threats are specific, detailed. Someone's been watching you, planning something." He turned to face me, and I saw real fear in his eyes. "Do you understand how close you might have come to dying? I handled it. You handled it by hiding it from the one person who could protect you." His voice rose, then caught himself, softening. "I'm sorry. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at myself for not seeing it, and I'm terrified because if something had happened to you." He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. "I'm okay," I said, going to him. "I'm right here." His arms came around me, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. "I need to get you somewhere safe, tonight. One of my properties where Ferrara can't touch you. I'm not running from my life. This isn't negotiable." "Yes, it is." I pulled back to look at him. "Dante, I won't live in hiding because of your enemies. If I'm going to be with you, really be with you, then I need to be able to live my life, even if it gets you killed, even then. Because that's what being with you means, right? Accepting the danger, accepting the reality of your world." He looked torn between pride and terror. "You're too brave for your own good. I learned from the best." He huffed a laugh despite everything, then pressed his forehead to mine. "At least let me increase your security. Personal guards, surveillance, the works." "Okay. Just like that? Okay? Just like that." I smiled. "See? I can be reasonable. You're the least reasonable woman I've ever met." But he was smiling too now, that rare, genuine smile that made him look years younger. "You're also the best thing that's ever happened to me, even though I'm a liability. Especially because you're a liability. You make me vulnerable, Bella. You give me something to lose. And that terrifies me more than any rival ever could." He kissed me softly. "But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change you. Not for anything." We stood there in the quiet of my apartment, holding each other while danger circled outside. Tomorrow he'd wage war against Ferrara. Tomorrow blood would spill and alliances would shift. But tonight, we had this. Stolen moments of peace in a life that offered precious few. "Stay with me," I whispered. "Not as my protector, just as you." He nodded, letting me lead him to the bedroom. We didn't make love that night. Instead, we lay tangled together, talking until dawn about dreams and fears, and a future that seemed impossible, but that we both wanted desperately to believe in. As sunlight crept through the windows, Dante's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He read it, and his expression hardened. "What is it?" "Marco found Ferrara." He sat up, already reaching for his clothes. "I need to go. Dante, please be careful." He paused at the door, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "When this is over, when Ferrara's handled and you're safe, I'm going to ask you something important, and I hope you'll say yes." Before I could respond, he was gone. I sat in bed, heart pounding, mind racing, because I knew exactly what he was going to ask, and I already knew my answer. The warehouse where Marco had found Ferrara was in a part of the city even cops avoided. Dante arrived with 6 of his most trusted men, each one a hardened killer who'd proven their loyalty with blood. But it was Dante they all followed. Dante they'd die for, because he'd built something rare in this world, a family that actually meant something. Antonio Ferrara was tied to a chair in the center of the empty space, his expensive suit torn and bloodied, his face already showing signs of Marco's interrogation methods. But his eyes were still defiant when Dante entered. "The famous Dante Moretti," Ferrara spat, "finally showing your face instead of hiding behind your woman." Dante's expression didn't change as he approached, but I would have recognized the danger in his posture. He was a predator about to strike. "You shot up my restaurant. You threatened an innocent woman. You broke every rule our families have honored for generations. Dante's voice was calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. Give me one reason I shouldn't end you right here. Because killing me starts a war you can't win. Can't I? Dante circled him slowly. Your father's dead. Your brothers are dead. Your lieutenants have been abandoning you for months. You're alone, Antonio. The only reason you're still breathing is because I've been showing mercy. Mercy? Ferrara laughed bitterly. You call destroying my family mercy? I call letting you live mercy. But you've tested my patience for the last time. Dante stopped in front of him. The woman you threatened, Isabella, she's under my protection, which means she's untouchable. You broke that protection. She's your weakness. She makes you soft, makes you human. And humans die easy in this world, Moretti. Dante moved so fast that Marco and his men barely had time to react. His hand wrapped around Ferrara's throat, lifting him and the chair partially off the ground. The casual strength in the move, the absolute control, was more intimidating than any shouting could have been. Let me make something very clear, Dante said, his voice deadly soft. You can try to hurt me by hurting her. But understand this. Every threat against Isabella, every slight against her, every moment of fear she experiences because of you, will be repaid tenfold. I will destroy everything you love, everyone you've ever cared about, and I will make you watch before I finally grant you the mercy of death. He released Ferrara, who fell back, gasping. Dante straightened his jacket, his composure never wavering. But I'm not going to kill you today, Dante continued. That would be too easy, too quick. Instead, you're going to leave this city, tonight. You're going to take what's left of your organization and disappear. Because if I ever see you again, if you ever even think about coming back here or going near Isabella, there won't be enough pieces of you left to bury. You can't exile me. This is my city, too. Not anymore. Dante nodded to Marco. See that he's on a plane within the hour. I don't care where it goes, as long as it's far from here. As Marco's men began cutting Ferrara's bonds, preparing to escort him away, Dante's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted to one of absolute terror. It was my number. He answered immediately. Isabella? But it wasn't my voice that responded. It was a man's, rough, unfamiliar, amused. Mr. Moretti, we have your pretty girlfriend. If you want her back alive, I suggest you let Antonio go and come alone to the address I'm about to text you. The phone went dead. Dante stood frozen for 3 heartbeats, his mind clearly racing through calculations and scenarios. Then he turned to Marco, with an expression that would have sent anyone else running. Get Ferrara out of here. Now. And get every available man to trace that call. Dante, it could be a trap. I don't care! The roar echoed through the warehouse. They have Isabella. His phone buzzed with an incoming address. An abandoned factory on the waterfront. Of course. Dante was already moving, his men scrambling to follow, when Ferrara's laugh stopped him. This is what happens when you love, Moretti. This is what happens when you give your enemies a target. Dante turned slowly. For a moment, just a moment, I think he considered killing Ferrara right there despite his earlier mercy. But then he seemed to make a decision, nodding at Marco instead. Keep him alive. I might need him yet. The drive to the waterfront was the longest 15 minutes of Dante's life. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. His jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Every worst-case scenario played through his mind on repeat. His phone rang again. This time it was my voice, frightened but trying to be brave. Dante, don't come. It's a trap. They're going to... The sound of someone hitting me came through the line, followed by my cry of pain, and Dante nearly crashed the car. Pure rage, the kind he'd spent years learning to control, flooded through him. Touch her again, and I will make your death last days, he said into the phone, his voice barely human. Another unfamiliar voice, this one with a thick Eastern European accent. Then I suggest you hurry, Mr. Moretti. My patience is limited, and your woman is very beautiful. It would be a shame if something happened to that pretty face. The line went dead. Dante's men pulled up to the factory minutes later, forming a perimeter while Dante approached the main entrance alone as instructed. Every instinct screamed that this was suicide, but he'd walk into hell itself if it meant getting me back. The inside was dark except for a single spotlight illuminating the center of the space. And there I was, tied to a chair, blood trickling from my split lip, but alive, conscious, angry. "Isabella," Dante breathed. "Well, well," came a voice from the shadows. A figure stepped into the light, tall, scarred, wearing expensive clothes that didn't quite hide the brutal nature beneath. The great Dante Moretti, brought to his knees by a woman. "My employer will be pleased." "Who sent you?" "Does it matter?" The man circled me lazily, running a finger along my shoulder. I flinched, and Dante's control slipped another notch. "You've made many enemies, Moretti. This could be any of them. Name your price." "Price?" The man laughed. "There is no price. Your death is the price. You let Ferrara go, you walk away from your territory, or we kill her. Slowly, while you watch." Dante's mind raced. He counted at least 8 hostiles in the shadows, all armed. His men were outside, waiting for a signal. If he played this right, he could get me out alive. If he got it wrong, "I need proof you'll let her go," Dante said, stalling. "You're in no position to negotiate. Then you'll have to kill us both, because I'm not leaving without her." The man seemed to consider this, then shrugged. "Very well. We kill you both." He raised his gun toward me. Everything happened at once. Dante drew his weapon and fired in one fluid motion, hitting the man's center mass. Glass shattered as Dante's men crashed through windows, engaging the hostiles in a brutal firefight. And somehow, in the chaos, Dante reached me. He cut my bonds with a knife I didn't even see him draw, pulling me behind crates as bullets flew overhead. "Can you run?" he shouted over the gunfire. "Yes." He kept himself between me and the fighting as we moved toward an exit. His body my shield, his gun speaking death to anyone who got close. I'd never seen him like this. Not protective, but absolutely lethal. This was Dante Moretti, the Mafia boss, the killer, the man who'd built an empire on violence. And he was using every bit of that violence to save me. We made it outside to where more of his men had arrived, forming a protective circle. Dante pushed me toward one of the cars, but not before checking me over again for injuries. "I'm okay," I insisted. "Dante, I'm okay." The relief in his eyes was profound. Then it shifted to something colder as he looked back at the factory where the firefight was ending. "Marco," he called. "Survivors?" "2, boss. The rest are dead." "Good. Bring them to me." They brought the surviving men to the warehouse where we'd held Ferrara just hours earlier. One was wounded but conscious. The other was terrified, already talking before Dante even asked a question. "It was Nikolai Volkov. He hired us. He wanted to hurt you by taking your woman." Dante's expression darkened. Volkov, the Russian crime lord who'd been trying to move into Italian territory for months. Of course. "Where is he?" "I don't know. I swear. He only contacted us through intermediaries." Dante looked at Marco, who nodded and took both men to another room for further questioning. When we were alone, Dante turned to me with an anguish that broke my heart. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm so fucking sorry. This is my fault. My enemies, my war, and you got caught in the crossfire." "Stop," I said, going to him. "This isn't your fault. You didn't kidnap me. You didn't tie me to that chair. Your enemies did that. Because of me. Because they're cowards who can't face you directly." I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. "Dante Moretti, listen to me. I knew what I was signing up for when I started falling for you. I knew the danger. I chose you anyway, and I'd choose you again. Every single time." His composure finally cracked. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I might disappear, and I felt his shoulders shake with silent emotion. "I can't lose you," he whispered against my hair. "I can't. You're the only good thing in my life, the only thing that makes me believe I'm more than just a killer. You are more. So much more." We stood like that for a long time, 2 broken people holding each other in a world trying to tear us apart. When Marco returned, his expression was grim. "Boss, you're going to want to hear this." What Marco revealed changed everything. Volkov wasn't just trying to expand territory. He'd formed an alliance with several smaller families, all united by one goal: destroying Dante and taking over his empire. Ferrara had been part of it, though his attack on the restaurant had been unauthorized, motivated by personal revenge rather than strategy. "How many families?" Dante asked. 5, maybe 6, enough to cause serious problems if they coordinate. Dante was quiet for a moment, calculating. Then he made a decision that surprised everyone. Call a meeting. All the families in the city, even the ones in the Alliance. Neutral ground, 3 days from now. Dante, that's suicide, Marco protested. They'll use it as an opportunity to take you out. Maybe. Or maybe I can end this without more bloodshed. He looked at me. I'm tired of fighting. Tired of always looking over my shoulder. If I can broker a real peace, give them something they want without sacrificing what matters, then it's worth the risk. And if they won't negotiate, Dante's expression hardened, then we go to war. But at least I'll have tried to do things my father's way first. Over the next 3 days, Dante worked tirelessly to arrange the meeting. He made calls, offered concessions, promised compromises. He was willing to give up territory, reduce his operations, anything that would keep me, and the civilians caught between our wars, safe. I watched him transform from the ruthless boss everyone feared into someone trying desperately to find another path. It was like seeing the man he could have been if life had dealt him different cards. The night before the meeting, we lay in bed at his penthouse, the city lights stretching out below us. Are you scared? I asked. Terrified, he admitted. Not of dying, but of leaving you alone in this world. Then come back to me. I'll try. But Isabella, if something happens, don't. I pressed my fingers to his lips. Don't say goodbye. Not tonight. So instead, we made love slowly, tenderly, like we had all the time in the world, even though we both knew we might not have tomorrow. And when the dawn came, Dante dressed in his finest suit like he was going to war, which in many ways he was. I love you, he said at the door, the first time he'd said those words. Whatever happens today, know that I love you more than I've ever loved anything in my life. I love you too. Now go make peace, so we can have a future. He smiled, kissed me one last time, and left. The meeting was held at an old church, neutral ground that no family controlled. Every major player in the city's underworld was there. Italians, Russians, Irish, Chinese, all of them armed, all of them dangerous, all of them watching Dante with suspicion and respect in equal measure. Nikolai Volkov sat at the head of the opposite side of the long table, his cold blue eyes locked on Dante. You wanted peace, Moretti? State your terms. Dante stood, commanding the room with his presence. I'm willing to reduce my operations by 30%. The territories I give up will be divided fairly among the families here. In exchange, you leave the civilians alone. No more using innocents as pawns in our wars. Murmurs around the table. Volkov leaned back, considering. And your woman? The one we hear so much about? She's hardly innocent if she's sharing your bed. Dante's voice went cold. She's off limits, completely. Anyone who touches her will deal with me directly. That's non-negotiable. Everything's negotiable, Moretti. Not her. The tension was thick enough to cut. Volkov exchanged glances with his allies, some kind of silent communication passing between them. Very well, Volkov finally said. We accept your terms. With one addition. What addition? You marry her. Publicly. Make her truly part of your family, with all the protections that entails. That way our alliance is sealed with mutual understanding. We don't touch your family. You don't touch ours. Dante hadn't expected that. None of us had. But as he thought about it, he realized it was actually brilliant. Marriage would make me untouchable under the old codes all these families still honored. Done, Dante said. When? 1 month. Enough time to plan something appropriate. And Moretti? Volkov smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. I expect an invitation. The meeting concluded with an agreement that shocked everyone. Real peace, the first in decades, brokered by a man in love who was willing to sacrifice his empire for one woman's safety. When Dante returned to his penthouse, I was waiting with Marco's text already read. He did it. The crazy bastard actually did it. Dante barely made it through the door before I launched myself at him. Relief and joy and love, overwhelming everything else. You did it, I breathed. You actually made peace. For you, he said simply. I'd have given up everything for you. The territory I surrendered is nothing compared to what I gained. What did you gain? A future. With you. He pulled back, reaching into his pocket. Isabella, I was going to wait, do this properly, but I can't. Not after everything we've been through. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring, A stunning diamond that must have cost a fortune but somehow looked exactly right. Marry me. Not because Volkov demanded it. Not because it protects you. But because I love you. Because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Because I want to spend whatever time I have left in this world as your husband. I was crying, laughing, nodding all at once. Yes. Yes. Of course, yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, then stood and kissed me with all the passion and promise of our impossible, beautiful future. Outside, the city continued on, dangerous, unpredictable, full of shadows. But in that moment, we had light. We had hope. We had each other. And sometimes, that's all you need to believe in happy endings. The engagement announcement hit the city's underworld like a bomb. Dante Moretti, the most feared crime boss in the city, was getting married to a bookstore clerk. The gossip spread through every family, every territory. Everyone suddenly interested in the woman who'd captured the heart of a man most believed had no heart to capture. My life changed overnight. Suddenly I had bodyguards everywhere, discreet but present. Marco assigned 2 of his best men to my protection, and while they tried to give me space, their presence was a constant reminder of the world I was entering. The wedding planning was surreal. Dante wanted to give me everything. A massive celebration, designer dress, celebrity florist, the works. But I pushed back, wanting something more intimate, more us. Bella, you're marrying into one of the most powerful families in the city, he argued one evening in his penthouse. This wedding needs to make a statement. A statement to who? Your enemies? I don't care what they think. He softened. You're right. I'm sorry. I just want to give you the perfect day. The perfect day is marrying you. The rest doesn't matter. We compromised. A medium-sized wedding at the church where the peace accord had been signed, with only people who actually mattered to us. My family would fly in from Ohio, carefully kept ignorant of exactly what Dante did for a living. His family, the extended network of cousins, lieutenants, and loyal friends who made up his world, would fill the other side of the aisle. But first, I needed to meet the inner circle. Dante arranged a dinner at one of his legitimate restaurants, inviting his closest advisors and their families. I spent hours picking the right dress, wanting to make a good impression on the people whose opinions actually mattered to the man I loved. They're going to love you, Dante assured me as we arrived. How could they not? Famous last words. The dinner started well. Marco was warm and welcoming, introducing me to his wife Sophia, a sharp-eyed woman who'd been part of this life for 40 years. The other lieutenants, Tony, Vincent, and a younger man named Luca, were respectful if somewhat reserved. Then Dante's cousin Maria arrived. She was beautiful in that polished, dangerous way some women in this life managed. Designer everything, perfect hair, eyes that calculated and judged in seconds. She swept into the restaurant like she owned it, kissed Dante on both cheeks, then turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So this is the infamous Isabella," she said, "the woman who's managed to tame our Dante." "I haven't tamed anyone," I replied evenly. "Dante's his own man." "Of course." Her tone suggested she thought otherwise. "Tell me, Isabella, what exactly do you bring to this family, besides being ordinary?" The table went silent. Dante's jaw tightened, but I touched his hand under the table, signaling I could handle this. "You're right. I am ordinary. I work in a bookstore. I have no money, no connections, no experience in this life. What I bring is love. Real, unconditional love for a man who spent too long believing he doesn't deserve it." Maria's smile sharpened. "Love. How quaint. Unfortunately, love doesn't protect territory or maintain alliances." "No, but it makes life worth living," Sophia interjected, her tone brooking no argument. "Something you might understand if you ever stopped scheming long enough to actually feel something, Maria." The tension between the two women crackled. Clearly, this was an old conflict. Dante cleared his throat. "Cousin, Isabella is going to be my wife. She's family. I expect you to treat her with the respect she deserves." Maria's expression showed she'd caught the warning in his voice. "Of course, cousin. I meant no disrespect. But I'd made an enemy that night. I could see it in her eyes as she watched me throughout dinner. Calculation, resentment, something darker I couldn't quite name. Later, As Dante drove me back to my apartment, I asked about her. Maria's complicated, he said carefully. She's been part of the family business since she was 18, knows it inside and out. She thought I might marry her someday. Oh, nothing ever happened between us, he said quickly. I never saw her that way, but she's ambitious, always has been. She thought being my wife would give her power in the organization. And now I'm taking that from her. You're not taking anything. She never had a claim on me. He pulled up to my building, turning to face me. Don't let Maria get in your head. She'll either accept you eventually, or she won't. Either way, you're the one I'm marrying. But Maria's words echoed in my mind that night. What did I bring to this world? I had no skills, no experience in the life, no way to be truly useful to Dante beyond loving him. Was that enough? Would it always be enough? The next few weeks were a whirlwind of wedding preparations mixed with growing tension in the city. The peace accord held, but barely. Small incidents kept happening. Shipments going missing, territories being tested, verbal conflicts that threatened to turn physical. And through it all, I could feel eyes on me, watching, judging, waiting to see if I'd survive in this world or become another casualty. Then my family arrived 3 days before the wedding, and everything got even more complicated. My mother took one look at Dante and I could see her maternal instincts flaring. He's older than you, she whispered when we had a moment alone. And Isabella, he's very intense. I love him, Mom. Love isn't always enough, sweetheart. What does he do exactly? You were vague on the phone. He runs several businesses, restaurants, real estate, security, all technically true, if wildly incomplete. My father was easier. He liked Dante immediately, appreciating his directness and the obvious way he cared for me. My younger sister Jenny was fascinated by the whole world, asking a million questions that Dante answered with amused patience. The rehearsal dinner was when things started to go wrong. We were at Dante's main restaurant, the one that had been shot up weeks before but was now fully repaired. My family mingled with his family, two worlds colliding in a way that was both beautiful and terrifying. That's when the man walked in. He was wearing a cheap suit, his face showing days of stress and fear, and he headed straight for Dante. 2 of Dante's men moved to intercept, but Dante held up a hand. "Mr. Moretti," the man said, his voice shaking. "Please. My daughter. They took my daughter and they're saying you're responsible." The restaurant went quiet. My mother looked confused. My father's expression was hardening as he started to understand. "What's your name?" Dante asked calmly. "James Chen. My daughter Emily was taken 2 days ago. The men who took her said they were settling a debt with you." Dante's expression darkened. "I have no debt with you, Mr. Chen, and I don't deal in kidnapping. But they said they lied. Tell me exactly what happened." As Chen explained, I could see Dante's mind working. Someone was using his name to terrorize innocents, probably trying to restart the conflicts he'd worked so hard to end. "Marco," Dante said quietly, "find the girl, use whatever resources necessary, and find out who's claiming to work for me. Boss, now Marco." Marco left immediately, taking several men with him. Dante turned back to Chen. "Go home. My men will bring your daughter back to you unharmed. And if they've hurt her, I will personally handle the men responsible." Chen's relief was palpable. "Thank you. Thank you so much." After he left, my mother approached. "Dante, what was that about?" He looked at her, and I saw him make a decision, to be honest, at least partially. "Mrs. Williams, I operate in a complicated world. Sometimes people use my name to legitimize their own criminal activities. I try to stop it when I can, but I can't control everyone who claims to work for me." "Criminal activities." My mother's voice was very quiet. "What exactly do you do, Dante?" The moment stretched. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how he'd respond. "I'm in organized crime, Mrs. Williams. I run one of the Italian families in the city. I've done bad things, and I'll probably do more bad things before I'm done. But I love your daughter more than anything in this world, and I will spend the rest of my life keeping her safe and trying to be the man she deserves." The honesty stunned everyone. My mother looked at me, her expression a mix of fear and betrayal. "Isabella, did you know?" "Yes, Mom. I've known from the beginning." "And you're still going to marry him?" "Yes." She looked between us, then at my father, who shrugged. "She's an adult, honey. It's her choice. Her choice to marry into the Mafia. Her choice to marry a man who clearly adores her, my father corrected. The rest, well, that's between them. My mother wasn't happy, but she didn't leave. Instead, she pulled me aside. Are you safe with him? Safer than I'd be without him. That's not what I asked. Yes, Mom. I'm safe. He'd die before he let anyone hurt me. She studied my face for a long moment, then sighed. You really love him. I really do. Then I suppose I'll have to learn to accept it. But Isabella? Her expression turned stern. If he ever hurts you, ever makes you regret this choice, you call me. Immediately. Mafia or not, no man is worth sacrificing your happiness for. I know, Mom, but I won't need to call. The rest of the evening passed in awkward tension, but at least my family didn't leave. That felt like a victory. Later, as Dante drove me home, he was quieter than usual. I'm sorry, he finally said. I should have told your family before tonight. Should have given them time to process. They would have tried to talk me out of marrying you. Maybe they should have. He pulled over, turning to face me. Isabella, are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we're married, there's no going back. You'll be part of this world forever. I took his face in my hands. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, even after seeing what happened tonight. Even knowing the danger, the violence, the constant threat. Even then, Dante, you're worth it. We're worth it. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. 2 more days, he whispered. 2 more days and you'll be my wife. I can't wait. But as we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very wrong. Call it intuition, call it paranoia, but every instinct I had was screaming that the peace we'd built was about to shatter. And this time, I wasn't sure love would be enough to protect us. The morning of the wedding, I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows of the hotel suite where I'd spent the night with Jenny and my mother. My wedding dress hung on the closet door, ivory silk with delicate lace, simple but elegant, exactly what I'd wanted. You're really doing this, Jenny said, bringing me coffee. I really am. He's kind of terrifying, you know, in a hot way, but still terrifying. I laughed. He's a teddy bear once you get to know him. A teddy bear who runs the Mafia. Well, nobody's perfect. My mother emerged from the bathroom, already dressed. She'd been quiet since the rehearsal dinner, processing everything she'd learned. Now she came to sit beside me on the bed. Isabella, I need you to understand something, she said. I may not agree with your choice. I may spend every day worrying about you, but you're my daughter, and I love you. If Dante makes you happy, truly happy, then I'll support you. He does, Mom. He really does. Then let's get you married. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Hair, makeup, getting into the dress. Sophia arrived with 2 other wives from Dante's organization, bringing traditions and wisdom from decades in this life. You're entering a complicated world, Sophia told me as she helped with my veil. There will be times when you question everything. Times when you're scared, lonely, angry. But remember, you're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. We women in this life, we take care of each other. Thank you, I said, meaning it. The church was beautiful when we arrived. White flowers everywhere, candles flickering, exactly the intimate ceremony I'd wanted, except for the small detail of heavily armed men stationed at every entrance. My father appeared at my side, offering his arm. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Thanks, Dad. He's a good man, isn't he? Underneath everything else? The best I've ever met. He nodded. Then let's go give him the greatest gift of his life. The doors opened, and I saw Dante waiting at the altar. He was breathtaking in his black tux, his dark hair perfectly styled, his eyes locked on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Marco stood beside him as best man, grinning like a proud father. As I walked down the aisle, I saw everyone, my family on one side, his on the other, allies and enemies sitting together because of the peace accord. Volkov was there, true to his word, watching with those cold blue eyes. Maria sat in the 3rd row, her expression unreadable, but I only had eyes for Dante. When I reached him, he took my hands, and I could feel them trembling slightly. This powerful, dangerous man was nervous marrying me. You're beautiful, he whispered. So beautiful I can barely breathe. The ceremony was traditional, led by a priest who'd known Dante since childhood. When it came time for vows, Dante surprised me by having written his own. Isabella, he began, his voice carrying through the church. "I've lived most of my life in darkness. I've done things I'm not proud of, become someone I never wanted to be. But then you walked into my world and brought light. Real, genuine light that made me believe I could be better. I promised to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you, to protect you, cherish you, and love you with everything I am. You've saved me in ways you'll never fully understand, and I will be grateful for that every day we have together." I was crying by the end, and I could see I wasn't the only one. Even Marco was wiping his eyes. My own vows felt inadequate in comparison, but I spoke from my heart. "Dante, you've shown me that love doesn't have to be simple to be real, that people aren't defined by their worst moments, but by their capacity to grow and change. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to be your safe place, your home, your partner,